So I just saw Incident in a Ghostland, or Ghostland, and it was good.
Okay, what's the story about?
Some guy's been breaking into people's homes, murdering the parents, and sparing the daughters. He stays in the house with her, along with the parents' dead bodies.
I'm not really sure what to think about this movie right now. I just came out of it, and it's one that I really kind of like and really kind of don't. And it's really hard to explain without spoiling it, so I'm probably just going to spoil the entire movie and explain my love and hate for it. So Ghostland is written and directed by Pascal Laugier. He's a French director who is infamously known for creating one of the greatest horror movies of all time in 2008, Martyrs, not to be confused with the 2015 Martyrs, which is terrible.
Can you hear me? Are you there? Please be there.
And he's also infamously known for the second best horror movie ever made, Tall Man.
And he was gone when the children were paying the price.
The children?
So let's start off with the things that I didn't particularly like about this movie, because I can get that over with pretty quickly here. For one, the acting in this movie overall really isn't that impressive. Almost all of the actors in it are not that good, and their performances feel very forced for the majority of the movie. But it doesn't really help that Pascal's dialogue that he wrote for them is pretty bad as well. Sometimes they're just these straight up cringe-inducing lines where you're like, oh.
Your sales are through the roof. They adore you, and they love you.
No one talks like that. Why did you write it like this? But what's interesting is that there's not a whole lot of dialogue in this movie because of what happens in the story. So basically the story of Ghostland is, or Incident in a Ghostland, is that this small family, a mom and her two daughters, go to a house that their aunt owned who just recently died. So they go to this house to start living there. They stop at a gas station, which is a pretty obvious horror trope where they stop at a gas station and someone warns them about something that might happen. This girl that writes horror novels or like short stories picks up this paper that says that there are people going around the area killing the parents of families and then leaving the daughters alive and living with them. And then you automatically think, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen in this movie. And then that exactly happens. So they go to the house, that thing happens, these people burst in, they attack this family, and it's this really violent scene where the mom is just going absolutely berserk on these guys. She's like super mom, and I immediately, my brain was like, this isn't right. This doesn't quite connect quite right. What's going on? What's happening here? And I was legitimately interested to see where it would go, and then one of the characters wakes up in bed and it's a nightmare, and I got really upset with the movie, and I thought that's what the movie was gonna be, was just a series of like nightmare sequences. Fortunately, it's not. What happens is this older version of Beth, who is the main character, wakes up in bed, and she is a successful writer. She's on a talk show where she's talking about her books and hawking her books to all the people of the world. And then another thing in my brain happened where I was like, what's going on here? Is this another dream? Because Vera, Beth's sister, told her mom that Beth was crazy, and she has stuff in her journal written down where she has these fantasies of talking to journalists and hawking her writing, and that she's a successful writer. So I was like, is this just in her head? Is she dreaming? And then turns out that's kind of what happens, but it's a lot more interesting. And that's sort of what I like about this movie, is that it doesn't really pull any punches. The big twist about halfway through is that the first half of the movie sort of didn't happen, which is both A, annoying, and B, kind of genius in a way, where the first scene of the movie where the mom is going crazy on these guys does happen, but she doesn't go crazy on them. She gets murdered. She gets her throat cut in front of her daughter, Beth, and Beth goes insane because of this. She loses her mind, and she loses herself in her own mind. And her sister Vera is trying to snap her out of it and putting up pictures in front of her, writing "help me" in front of her, and nothing's working. She's just lost in her own brain. And when that happened, I was like, that's interesting.
My first reaction was, holy shit, I didn't see that coming. Which is why I wanted to do it. And also that it scared me, and it was gonna be heavy and hard. And
this movie just got interesting. About halfway through, this movie gets really interesting, and then it turns into a torture porn movie. So if you're not into that, you'll hate this movie. But I kind of love what happens with this movie because it is this kind of fantastical first half where there's all this hope, and then it gets just crushed. And the movie goes on from there in an incredibly disturbing, disgusting, and depraved way that really worked for me. I don't know why, because normally these torture porn movies can either be too far or not really far enough, but this movie rides the line just right, where the people that break into this house dress the two girls up as dolls, and then they just kind of play with them in sadistic ways, and it lends itself to these really disturbing sequences where you'll just be like, I can't believe what I'm watching. This is like horrifying, and it's legitimately horrifying. And for a horror movie to be legitimately horrifying, it kind of legitimizes itself in a way.
Incident in a Ghostland is your most personal book so far.
Your sales are through the roof. They adore you.
Hello?
Please, you have to come back.
Vera?
They never should have stayed in that house.
But the thing holding it down for me is the performances, is the dialogue, and it's these big parts of the movie that kind of weigh heavily on it. I really want to like it, but when I watched some sequences, some of the acting is just so unbelievable that I'm like, I'm almost there. I just need a little more. I need a little more. And it's constantly, the second half is, there's a very sparse dialogue, and there's a lot of screaming and a lot of cussing, of course, and it doesn't really feel grating, which is kind of a miracle because of how much screaming and violence there is. But at some point, I just kind of wanted more from the characters, more from the dialogue, more from the performances. And that's another thing, the characters that are set up in the first 20 minutes are horrifically unlikable. And I really wish that Pascal, as the writer-director, put in more. He really needed to flesh these characters out more. And that would make the second half, when it gets really vile, work better. As it is, it works fine, it works well. It just would have been so much more effective if you cared about the characters. When they escape, it's sort of a hurrah moment because they're escaping this like pure evil, because it is pure evil, and that's why you root for them. But that's the only reason you root for them, is because they're these unlikable people against pure evil. So I don't know, I don't know how to feel about this movie. On one hand, I really love some of it, and on another, I really hate some of it. So while I end up sort of in the middle, I do kind of lean towards liking it, which is why I'll probably give it a 6 out of 10. I honestly do want to see it again because there are nuggets in there that I really do like, and I want to maybe get a different experience out of it a second time. I think it is a movie that I could have a different, better experience with a second time. So if you like these kind of movies, you'll probably like this one, but if you don't like disgusting, depressing movies, then you will probably not like this one.
What did you do to me? Except what happened. Tell me what you did! Stop running away!
Before I end off, I want to talk about a little thing I read in the trivia about this movie, which was sort of interesting. Apparently, Taylor Hickson, who plays Vera in the movie, suffered a gruesome injury to her face, and she's left with a permanent scar from like her cheek down to her chin. And it really is sort of a testament to how hardcore this movie is. So just let that be sort of again, a testament to what this kind of movie is. And apparently she is suing the producers of this movie because of how bad it is. It's left her actually like disfigured, not horribly. I've looked up pictures of how bad it is, and it is bad. Like I said, it's from like the cheekbone down to her chin, so it is a pretty bad scar. And honestly, I would never wish that on anybody. Like, that's horrible, but she looks good with it. She's pretty cute. So if you're watching this, Taylor Hickson, hit me up. I'm always free. That's the only reason I wanted to talk about this.